All right, guys, if you are not responding to your restaurant's reviews online, you are putting your restaurant's branding in other people's hands. Let's talk about that today in this episode of the Brand to Table podcast. What's going on, everybody? My name is Henry Kaminski Jr., your go-to guy for restaurant marketing and branding. And today's conversation is all about online reviews. Should I respond to them? Should I not respond to them? How should I respond to them? The goods, the bads, the uglies. I'm going to tell you right now, we just had a recent conversation with a client about this. He brought it to my attention. He's like, what's your take on online reviews? Because I am a mixed bag of emotions when it comes to whether or not I should be responding to them. And I'll be honest with you, Henry, I don't have a lot of time in my day to be knocking out reviews responses. And I understood that completely because he's running a restaurant. He's trying to figure out how to put out fires or, 19 other things he's got on his docket that day. And restaurant reviews, yes, as important as they are, they're probably not on the top of his list. So I want to talk about this today because I come from a philosophy. I have a big branding background and marketing background, and I think the response to the reviews is a major part of marketing and branding because it showcases your expertise. It showcases your personality. It creates a dialogue with your guests versus a monologue and online, right? And I think it's super important for us to be responding to reviews, whether they're 1-star to 5-star, because believe it or not, there is a huge percentage of people that go to the reviews before they go to your restaurant. And not only are they scoping out your reviews, but they're also scoping out whether or not you've responded and how you've responded. All right, so there's a few things here that I want to address where a lot of restaurant owners may look at these responses as big issues. And one of the issues that I see is operators aren't looking at the response to these reviews as strategic. They're looking at them as very emotional, very time consuming, and there is a strategy behind them that we'll get into later on. But that's number one. The other big one is trying to take all this on themselves. You don't necessarily have to be the one that's responding to these reviews. You can delegate this out. The problem that I see a lot of times is there's no direction on that delegation. So you get a GM, you get an AGM, or, you might get a server or bartender that you love that you think would be great for this, but they're responding and you're saying, whoa, let's hold up. That's not the best response. And now you're putting yourself out there even more. And it might not be a good look, right? So you have to make sure that you define that direction before you delegate this task. Because yes, I will certainly admit that this is a touchy subject, right? So every review, whether it's a 5-star or 1-star, needs to be handled with care. The other thing I want to talk about is not responding to these reviews comes with a cost. And that cost is the ability to retrieve that guest or retain that guest that maybe didn't have the best 5-star experience, right? So there is a way to regain that person's trust by responding to those reviews. But if you're not, you're leaving that whole thing on the table that could be helping you tremendously. But without doing anything at all, it's not doing no good for the restaurant. Let me take you behind the scenes a little bit and talk to you about a client that I work with where we started taking over their reviews, and there was a massive shift in that restaurant's positioning in the market that I saw after a couple of months of doing this. So one of the things that I noticed was there were reviews, hundreds of them. We only went back 30 to 45 days because going back 3 months, it just didn't make sense, right? But what happened was tons of reviews went unanswered, and people that were coming into the restaurant or potentially thinking about coming into the restaurant, they saw the pattern. They saw the pattern of no interaction with those reviews. And I can tell you, after talking with several guests that went to this restaurant, they were scratching their heads because they were saying to themselves, like, does the restaurant just not care? And that was a real thought. And I jotted that down when I brought that back to leadership. And if they were like, of course we care, but online, it didn't look that way. And that's how people are thinking these days. They want to see a dialogue. They want to see a relationship between the restaurant and the guest. And if they can't see it through the reviews, it doesn't exist. So one of the things that I talked to them about and really spotlighted was when you're responding to reviews, it certainly makes your restaurant more human. Guys, we're in North Jersey. There is almost a restaurant on every freaking block these days. How do you differentiate one restaurant from the next? And it's that human connection. And when you start to create these reviews responses, you're really going to start to create that connection because people are going to start to see the patterns of how you're responding and how you're communicating with your guests. And that's going to trigger them to want to come in and meet the team and enjoy themselves and really experience that restaurant to the fullest. Okay, so there is a rhyme and reason to how to respond to these reviews. It's not just going out willy-nilly, writing a 3-word response, thanks for coming, and calling it a day. That's not it. One of the first things that I want to share with you is make sure that you read the review, you understand it from top to bottom, whether it's 4 words or a short biography, right, of their experience, because it's so important for you to understand the feeling behind it, right? You might also catch some really cool things in service that you may or may not be doing that is a differentiator or maybe a thorn in your side that you could easily correct have you now know what that issue is. So that's number one. But the other thing is not to get defensive. I notice this a lot. People get really defensive. And listen, I would be just as defensive. Listen, I've gotten poor reviews in the past. Like, I'm a human being. I've made mistakes, right? And my business coach at the time was like, don't get defensive. Apologize and understand where you went deficient and acknowledge it. Don't deflect, because that shows that, that defensiveness isn't going to serve you by any means. They're already fired up over the review because that's why they wrote it, right? So you got to chill out with the defensiveness. As hard as it can be sometimes, that's the game changer. So how should you respond, right? So I look at the AAR method: appreciate, address, and then redirect. So appreciate them for coming in and spending their hard-earned money and their time and their energy to choose your restaurant over the thousands that are here in North Jersey, right? The other thing is to address the situation straight on. And like I said before, hit it straight on. And if you were, if you were at fault by any means, just own it. Just own it. It's going to keep the conversation rolling, and they're going to appreciate that so much. And then redirect. Redirect them to a future experience at the restaurant. And you don't have to put this publicly, but maybe you have them reach out to you privately, and then you offer them a little something to get them back to reestablish that relationship. Goes a long way, guys, when you treat these reviews this way. And a 3, 2, or a 1-star review, by just you responding, that guest could delete the review completely, change the stars and rank you higher, and rework the review to your favor. There's a lot of positive that could happen if you hit these reviews head on. There's actually more upside to responding to reviews than downside. So this framework turns the relationship around completely, and it builds that trust, it builds that connection. And I'm all about connection, guys, because that's what I truly believe is going to differentiate your restaurant from everybody else's. The next time that guest comes in, that trust was there, it's been established through that communication, through that review, and it's going to give them a confidence in that restaurant. So long as you deliver, right? You can't just say, all right, we got them back. Awesome. We could go back to our old ways. No, make sure that they are treated like royalty so they know that you took the situation seriously. So let me give you some actionable steps that you can put into place immediately. It's not going to rearrange your entire day, and I think it's really going to help you guys out. First and foremost, set a little block of time. When me and my team are going through review management and responding to reviews for our restaurant clients, we have a block of time, 30 to 40 minutes. We crank out as many as we can. We take the time. Sometimes we get done sooner because there's not that many reviews, right? So, but we have a 30-minute block of time where sometimes we get busy and it's a 15 block of time, but we always try to hit them every 2 days so they don't go so far out where the person feels, ignored. And here's a little pro tip, guys. Before you hit that publish button, read back your response as if you were the guest to see how it hits, because you might be all fired up while you're writing that response, and you might not realize how you're coming across. So before you hit that publish button, reread it to see how it feels, because that feeling is going to hit one way or another once that guest reads it. So at the end of the day, guys, reviews are molding your restaurant's reputation, whether you like it or not. But the big question is, do you want to be part of that conversation, or do you want to leave it in the hands of the guest 100%? And if I know you guys, I know the answer is a hard no. If you can have any sort of control over your restaurant's reputation, you're going to take advantage of that 100%. And so I want this episode, as short as it is, to be taken seriously, because your reputation is everything to your restaurant. And what did they say, guys? It takes 7 years. It takes years to build a great relationships and like 3 minutes to destroy it. And if that ain't the truth, especially nowadays, it's something to think about when it comes to review management and getting after those reviews, because I've seen it. I've saw restaurants make huge jumps in credibility and respect and earn that trust back from their guests just by responding to their reviews or giving us the responsibility of doing that, and us making sure that how we respond is in their tone of voice and is in their brand positioning properly, so that we are hitting those review responses right on target. So there you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. I just want to take 15 seconds to just say thank you. I was looking over the analytics over the last couple days, and over the last 30 days, over 11,000 people have been listening to this podcast. That's incredible. I would be happy if 20 people watched the podcast or listened to it in the last 30 days. Never mind over 11,000. I think it was like 11,219 when I looked at it on Monday. I just want to thank you so much for being part of the show and listening to what I am trying to say and trying to do here, because it is a passion of mine to help you restaurant owners level up your branding, level up your marketing, and take your restaurant to the next level. So if you think I can help you, reach out, let's have a conversation, and we'll take it from there. Have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode real soon.